Hey there, you fabulous folks. I hope your day has been absolutely awesome. We're back for another exciting episode of What If Naruto Was the Golden Devil. A big shout out to the amazing author behind this fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find their details in the description box below. If this what if scenario is getting your imagination going, drop a comment down below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to explore more mind-blowing what ifs on the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's jump right into this video. You certainly had an interesting day when you and Mito-chan went with Rias in her group. Kaguya questioned Naruto from across her desk in her studies. Kushina was sitting in one of the other chairs next to him. On the desk in between them was Saber and Excalibur ruler, while Bester was lying down near Naruto's seat. I had expected that you both would manage to find your familiars, though a Sky Storm Liger and a Baby Hydra weren't my first guesses. The same going with Ashia-chan finding a Sprite Dragon as well, and then there is the fact you met up with the Lady of the Lake and received an Excalibur fragment. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Things just don't go simple for me, and she wants me to reunite the swords too. Did she give you a time limit? Kushina asked as she looked at Ruler with calculative eyes. No, she didn't. All she wanted was for me to get the swords together. We all know that the churches wouldn't let me just have the 6 other blades, Naruto replied before crossing his arms with a frown. But it works out for me right now. I need to work on getting used to having a holy sword this powerful, before I rush to find the others. It shouldn't take you too long. You adapted to using Saber pretty quickly after a month of training since becoming a devil. Speaking of which, Kaguya looked between the tiny spirit and her grandson. How's that experimenting you were doing together going? It has actually been very rewarding, though I am very surprised about what we've learned regarding the Guardian mode. Saber explained as Naruto lifted Ruler off the desk and sealed it away. How so? The Lucifer clan had raised an eyebrow before leaning forward a bit. The Guardian armor is a combination between my own light magic and Saber's powers, giving her defensive abilities a physical form. From what the two of us have learned about the armor, it increases my speed, defense and magical powers with incredible energy manipulation. Naruto told his grandmother as he thought back to his battle with Abazith, and the training he and Saber put into the armor afterwards. But like the name suggests, it is mostly a speed and defensive power for me to fight with. That way Saber and I have been attempting to see what would happen if we tried to combine my darkness magic instead of my light, to see if the results change anything. And just like when Naruto first activated the Guardian armor, we managed to create a gauntlet of some sort around his arm. This one was black with spikes and red vein-like markings on it, though that might just be a reaction from the darkness magic. We'll need a little time to see what this new form could be and its effects. Interesting, Kaguya said as she thought on what Naruto and Saber were saying. If their powers seem to create armors, then what would be the result if they used darkness and light magic together? If the two of them were to be able to find the perfect balance between the two, it would be fascinating to see. Now then, going back to another part of your story. You confronted a black Nekomata during the match between Gremory and Citri. I'm surprised you were able to sense Kuroka while she was hiding herself. Kuroka? Is it her name? Naruto replied, thinking back to his meeting with Kaneko's buxom older sister. He would definitely research a little more on the Nekoshu race after everything is resolved with Rias, and her whole marriage thing first. There isn't much I can say right now. We met and talked a little bit before fighting for a minute or so. I couldn't really sense her presence, but there was something that told me she was there. I think it was because of Saber's own perception ability. It happened before when I encountered Abazith for the first time. The reason you couldn't sense her was because of the powers that Nekomatas possess, Kushina explained as she stood up from her seat and moved towards one of the bookshelves, reaching up to one of the books and pulled it out. She brought it over to Naruto and placed it on the desk in front of him. It was a dark green book with a 2-tailed cat on the cover. If you want to know more about them, I suggest you read this. It has up to the most current information on Nekomatas. Naruto stared down at the book for a few seconds before nodding. Thanks, but unfortunately I will have to look at it later. There's something else I need to talk to you two about first, something I'm sure you already know about. Kaguya nodded her head at her grandson's words. You're talking about Rias Gremory's engagement, correct? You wish to know if there's a way for her to end the engagement between her and the House of Phoenix. That's right, I figured you would know about it and how to stop it. Naruto replied with narrow eyes as he thought back to when Rias had told him the whole truth involving her arranged marriage. Even just thinking about it was hard to stomach. So is there anything you can think of? To be perfectly honest with you, I can think of several ways you can stop something like an arranged marriage. However, the Lucifer had leaned back in her chair while crossing her arms. I have no intention of telling you any of them. What? Naruto's eyes widened in shock at that. He shot out of his seat and slammed his hands onto the desk. Why can't you tell me? Tell me, Naruto-kun, do you really want to do something about Ria's engagement? Kaguya asked as she stared into her grandson's eyes, to which the blonde quickly nodded his head in response. Then you need to find an answer on your own, not go to someone to just give you the answers. Like I told you in the beginning, I would hold your hand and give you everything you want. If you want to stop her arranged marriage, then you need to think of something on your own. Naruto's gaze softened before drifting down. His grandmother was right. If he wanted to help Rias, then he needed to handle it himself. Instead of relying on someone else. I understand, Grandma. Thank you for your advice. It is no trouble, Naruto-kun, and no matter what you do, the Lucifer clan will support you. Naruto nodded his head before removing his hands off the desk, and grabbed the Nekomata book before turning around and making his way out of the room. Bester took notice of his master leaving and stood up before following after him. Naruto-kun, the Lucifer heir stopped as he reached the door, shifting his head a bit towards his mother. You will find an answer, something that only you can do. Naruto didn't say anything as he turned back to the door, and silently made his way out of the study with Bester right behind him. A few seconds after he left, the Redeed turned to her mother. It's get closer now, so he'll be exposed to everyone. If we're correct on what solution he will come to, then yes. And it won't be just him, the Lucifer clan will truly return after this. Kagui replied before she opened one of the drawers and reached inside before pulling out a picture frame. In the frame was a picture of Naruto a few days after he had been born. Though we can't say there aren't a few that don't know about him already, thanks to you and Minato's pasts. Kushina walked behind her mother and looked at the photo in her hands before a dull look on her face, as she caught a familiar face next to her and Minato, smiling down at the baby Naruto as he slept. Don't remind me, I still don't know how he convinced me to allow her to be Naruto-kun's godmother. While the two of them did share a past before Minato retired from his former career. Kagui replied with a smirk, now that I think about it, that was probably the first time a man ever won an argument against you. Kushina just gave her mother a deadpan look at her comment, but the older Redeed ignored her as she placed the photo away. Naruto-kun is walking down a path that no other devil has truly walked before, and I can't wait to see what happens. Kushina let out a sigh before leaning against the chair her mother was sitting in. Right now I think he's more focused on helping Rias. I wonder how he'll react to that. It can't be helped. Kaguya said as she looked up at Kushina. He is one of the few remaining members of the Lucifer clan, after all. Meanwhile, Naruto closed the door to his room and made it to his desk, not bothering to turn on the light, as he silently enjoyed the moonlight shining through the windows of his new room at the Uzumaki Lucifer mansion, which was several times bigger than his old room. He had dismissed Bester on the way back to his room, so he could think on what his mother had said. Placed the book on the desk, the blonde devil started to take off his school jacket and long-sleeved shirt. Naruto started making his way to his bed and fell backward onto the mattress, his limbs stretched out as he stared at the ceiling. Something that only I can do, huh? Naruto muttered as he raised one of his hands into the air, channeling a bit of his light magic to dance around his fingers, as his mind wandered to the subject with Rias and her situation. After everything that happened with the two of us, I'm not going to let it end like this. Dismissing the golden light, Naruto clenched his hand into a fist before turning on his side. As he continued to think more and more about ideas, ones that hopefully Rias had not already attempted, thoughts back to what his father had said to him a long time ago. Flashback. Minato had a grin on his face as he dodged his 10-year-old son's fist, and used it to flip the smaller body over him. Naruto twisted his body around and sent a kick at his father's head, who caught the attack effortlessly, and kept a tight grip on the arm and leg. A small distance away, Kushina was sitting on a large blanket with a 3-year-old Mito on her lap, smiling happily at the father and son bonding the two most precious men to her were having. Little Mito was stumbling with her words as she excitedly bounced on Kushina's lap, laughing at her older brother and father jumping all over the place, innocently unaware of the fight between the two. Saber was sitting on the picnic basket as she watched her master continue his training, unseen by anyone as she kicked her feet a bit. Kushina turned from seeing her son managing to escape his father's grip to a clock she had set up earlier. Seeing the time, she called out to the two. Minato, Naru-chan, your time's up. It's time to eat. That brought the two to an immediate halt as they turned to look at the Redeed. Alright Kushina, we're on our way. Minato shouted back before turning to Naruto. Come on Naruto. Right, let's go. Naruto cheered as he started their way back towards the picnic blanket, but the younger blonde turned to look up at his father. Hey dad. Yeah, what's up? Minato replied as he continued to look forward. Naruto raised his fist up to his face. Am I really getting stronger? Of course you are, why do you ask that? This time the older blonde looked down at his son with a raised eyebrow. It's just that I can't seem to be able to hit you. Naruto pouted as his gaze drifted down to the ground, but it didn't last long as he felt his father place a hand on his head, making him look up to see Minato grinning down at him. Is that what you're worried about? Naruto, I've been at this for a long time, long before I even met your mother. Minato explained as he bent down to Naruto's level. You're growing stronger every day, and you'll no doubt start to surpass me as you get older. Really? You mean it? Naruto perked up after he heard his father say that. Of course I do. Minato stared at his son with serious expression. And do you know what you are fighting and getting stronger for? The smaller blonde nodded his head excitedly, so I can protect mom and Mito-chan from getting hurt. That's right. Patting his son on the head, the older male continued to speak. But remember that protecting someone is more than preventing physical wounds. There are a lot more painful things out in the world. More painful things, like what? Naruto tilted his head to the side with a confused look. How should I put this? Minato averted his gaze for a second before looking back to Naruto. When it comes to fighting to protect something, it could mean to protect someone's life, to defend someone's honor, or more importantly to protect someone's heart. Protect the heart. Naruto blinked a few times. A person's heart is a crazy thing, Naruto. It has moments of unequaled strength, while there are other times when it is the brittle procession we have. Minato stood up and continued walking him and Naruto towards the picnic. But it helps create a powerful bonds and connections between people, tying all of us together. And even now, your mother and I protect you and Mito in every possible way we can. Okay, but how do I protect a heart? There will be a time when you'll find out what it takes. It's something I learned myself when I was young. Minato replied as they reached Kushina and Mito. Like I said before, I have no doubt that you'll surpass me when you get older. Flashback end. Naruto stared at his clenched hand before lifting himself up. I guess it's my turn now. The Lucifer heir turned his head as he noticed began to glow at the corner of his eye. Getting a better look, he saw it was the Gremory seal, and Rias was standing at the center. As the glow started to die down, Naruto spoke up. What are you doing here, Rias-chan? Naruto-kun. Rias silently moved over to the bed and sat next to him. Were you able to find anything from your grandmother or mother? Scratching the back of his head, Naruto started to speak up. Unfortunately, we're on our own on this. My grandmother says this is something that I can't ask other people. The blonde didn't notice as Ria's eyes closed as she let out a small sigh. But don't worry, I'll definitely think of something. He was cut off from speaking as he felt something press against his lips. Rias was kissing him. After a few seconds, Naruto started to kiss back as he raised a hand to her cheek, while Rias wrapped her arms around his neck. The kissing continued for a few minutes before the two had to separate for breath, Rias panting a little as she started to take off her clothes. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but I don't have any other choice. Naruto blinked a few times as he watched Rias quickly shed her clothes until she was sitting in her underwear. What are you talking about, Rias-chan? Time is running out now. The barrier around the Lucifer mansion should give us enough time. Rias said as she moved to sit on Naruto's lap. It was true that there was a barrier. Kaguya had created it to keep the house safe during the time she had been away from the Uzumaki Lucifer mansion, and she kept it up to keep the house safe from attack. Only the people that the Lucifer clan approves of can enter the barrier. Time for what? What's going on? Naruto questioned as Rias removed her bra, making her breasts bounce as they were released from their restraint. Placing her hands on Naruto's shoulder, she pushed him back until his back had made contact with the mattress. Please, Naruto, I want you to make me yours. Take my virginity. Leaning down again, Rias slammed her lips against him once more. Naruto couldn't help but feel conflicted. Pressing down on top of him was one of the most beautiful women he had ever met, someone who he deeply cared for. He knew that he should be doing something to stop her. Something like this shouldn't be thrown away so easily, but at the same time he didn't want this moment to stop. Naruto slowly reached his hand up and cupped one of Ria's large breasts, making the redeeted girl let out a moan as he fondled it and played with it. The Lucifer heir could feel Ria's heart pounding through her chest in his hand as he squeezed it once again. With a strong twist, Naruto flipped them over so their positions were reversed, and he slowly pulled away from the kiss to look at Rias. She was panting a little with her generous bosom bouncing with each breath, and one arm was extended out. Her crimson hair was spread out across the bed. The blonde brought one hand to her thigh and rested it there for a moment, before it up slowly, and softly caressed Ria's soft skin, and firmly grabbing onto one of Ria's ass cheeks, which causing the girl's breath hitched. But that didn't stop Naruto as he lowered his head down, and began kissing her neck. Rias let out a moan as Naruto continued to kiss and fondle her, but it soon came to an unfortunate end when Naruto pulled his head away from her, finally gaining a bit of control over himself. I'm sorry, Rias-chan, I can't do this. Why did you stop? Don't you want me? Rias questioned as she stared into Naruto's eyes with a sad look. You have no idea how much I want this, but giving up your virginity just to escape an engagement is not right. Naruto answered as he moved his hands away from her body, raising himself up a bit. It should be with someone you love, not as something to dismiss like when you sleep in the nude. Rias followed Naruto and raised her body, looking at him with tears building up. But this was my only chance, and I wanted you to be the one have it. I will help you end this engagement, Rias-chan, so you don't have to do something like this. Naruto placed a hand under her chin and leaned close to her. Do you remember the conversation we had during the issue with Ashia and the fallen angels, about devils having desires? Of course I do, I had asked you if you had any, Rias whispered as she stared up at Naruto. Their lips drew close again before making contact. The kiss was softer compared to the one from before, but still just as passionate. They slowly parted away as Naruto smiled down at her. And I do have my own desires. Naruto brought her close to him. She placed her head on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. One of them is staying with you forever, if you let me. Nothing would make me happier, as long as you don't mind me asking you the same thing. The happy moment between them was interrupted, however, when a blue light flashed a few feet away from them. Naruto and Rias quickly parted and turned towards the light to see a magical circle spinning on the ground. It looks like she's here. She? Naruto repeated with narrow eyes as a beautiful woman appeared on top of the seal. She appeared to be in her early 20s, with silver hair and matching eyes, while her lips had red lipstick on them. Her hair, which flowed all the way down to her back, featured a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. She was wearing a blue and white French-made outfit with long sleeves and a white-made headband over her head. It looks like I arrived just in time, Rias-sama, the woman spoke up as the magical circle under her vanished. Master, and Surzuchus-sama would be crestfallen if you had done the deed with the commoner. Surzuchus, the current Lucifer of the four great Satans, and your older brother. Naruto commented as he felt Rias move away from him and step off the bed. That right, and this woman is my brother's queen. Rias spoke up with a frown before crossing her arms under her chest. Who has no say in who I decide to give my body to, only I have that right. And don't call him a commoner, he is someone who I hold precious to my heart. The words didn't seem to faze the silver-haired woman, as she silently walked forward and picked up Ria's shirt and placed it on her shoulder. You are the heir of the Gremory family, and certain things are expected of you. Please learn how to use discretion. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to answer me a few things. Naruto spoke up as he watched the woman move to pick up. She stood up straight as she faced him. Like, how did you get through the barrier? Barrier? So that is what I was sensing as I teleported here. May I ask for your name? Well, the silver-haired woman didn't take immediate notice to it. A strong sensation seemed to flow through her, almost as soon as she entered the area. It was strangely familiar. Last I checked, it was rude to ask someone's name when not giving your own first, especially after entering their home uninvited. The woman did not look fazed by his words, but nodded her head. My apologies. I am Graphia. I serve the Gremory family and I am the wife of Lord Surzuchus Lucifer. Naruto looked at Rias, who nodded her head, before turning to Graphia. I'm the heir to the Lucifer clan. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Lucifer. Did you say Uzumaki Lucifer? If it seemed possible, Graphia's body seemed to tense up as she narrowed her eyes a little bit. Yes, he did. He is my grandson after all. A voice spoke up from behind Graphia, making everyone turn to see Kaguya standing behind her with a smirk on her face. It's been a long time, Fia-chan. Kaguya-sama, the silver-haired woman uttered as stared at the woman with wide, shocked eyes. I was waiting for a good opportunity to see you again, my former student. So wait, you're telling me that this woman was your student before the Great War? Naruto asked as he and Rias, both fully clothed, sat in on one of the couches in the large lounge just across from Kaguya, who had an amused look on her face, and Graphia, who was standing a few feet away from the couches. Kushina, Minato and the others were sitting on the couches away from the four. Akeno was also there, standing in her usual spot behind Rias. The Gremory heiress had summoned her just before everyone arrived in the lounge. I guess that would make sense on why she was able to pass through the barrier. Kaguya nodded her head before making a gesture towards Graphia. That's right, her full name is Graphia Lucifuge. Her clan were extra demons that served under the Lucifer clan, and I trained Fia-chan since she was a little girl, because she held a lot of potential. She is one of the few that I allowed to enter my home so easily. To think the cute tomboyish girl I took under my wing would become the silver-haired queen of annihilation. Tell me, do you still cause trouble when you get drunk? Drunk? Rias tilted her head to the side with a doubtful look. She's never seen her sister-in-law get drunk before, her brother once or twice, but never his wife. Akeno let out a small giggle as she tried to imagine the usually compass woman causing trouble. That would be a sight. Akeno muttered to herself. Kaguya-sama, please stop with the meaningless drabble. The last time I saw you was before I joined the anti-Satan. You didn't even come to the wedding. Kaguya's expression turned serious before closing her eyes. Everyone was looking at her with confusion, as Graphia continued to speak. Surzuchus-sama, and I had invited you to come. It was you after all that helped bring us together. I didn't want to ruin your wedding, Fia-chan. Regardless if I was a part of the war or not, there were definitely some that would have caused chaos because of my presence, so I decided to hide in the shadows and watch from afar. You look wonderful in your dress, Kaguya said as a smile grew on her face, when that was mirrored on Graphia's. And it wasn't as if I didn't keep an eye on you. Your son Milikus is adorable. You helped Ani-sama and Graphia get together. Rias questioned. It wasn't much really. All I did was tell Fia-chan to follow her heart and gave her my blessing, and I may have annihilated a few hundred devils that tried to kill her, as she went to rendezvous with Surzuchus and his group. Kaguya replied with a dismissive wave. That's not much. These thoughts went through the younger generation's heads as they looked at the Lucifer head. The strongest queen narrowed her eyes a bit. Why have you decided to resurface now? It's mostly because of my grandchildren. They got caught up in a fiasco with some fallen angels, and were awakened. Kaguya replied before pointing towards Rias and Naruto, but it seems your sister-in-law had tried to make my grandson into one of her pieces a month before I arrived, though it turned out to be a failure. Graphia blinked a few times before turning to Rias with an intrigued look. Is this true? Rias looked nervous for a split second before she felt Naruto place a hand on hers. With a nod of her head she spoke. That's right, for certain reasons Naruto had not only rejected the evil piece, but he also absorbed all of his powers, leaving it a normal chess piece. I was planning on going to see if I could get a replacement piece. Graphia simply nodded as her mind focused on the fact that there was such a reaction to the evil pieces. I must inform Ijuka of the evil pieces of this. Who knows if this kind of reaction could happen again. Excuse me, heads turned to Ashia, who shyly looked at Graphia before speaking. Do you mind if I ask why you're here? It is no trouble at all. You are a member of Ria's peerage, correct? That's right, my name is Ashia Arg. I mean Ashia Uzumaki Lucifer. The blonde bowed her head a bit as she introduced herself. She was still getting used to switching between names. I am Bucho's bishop. A member of the Lucifer clan in your peerage. If I recall correctly, she was a former nun. Graphia questioned Rias, who nodded her head. She is Naruto-kun's sister, adopted into the family. Rias explained before turning to Ashia. You see Ashia-chan, the reason Graphia is here is because I was trying to break off my engagement. Engagement, you mean as in getting married? Ashia had a surprised look on her face as she stared at Rias, who narrowed her eyes. Not if I had any say on it. I refused to marry that man. It was an arranged marriage set up by my father and Lord Phoenix, to preserve the lineage of the pureblood devils that were lost from the Great War. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he heard that. A marriage between purebloods, it makes sense in a way. Indeed, there were many such marriages in the past during King Arthur's time. It was a way of keeping the royal blood pure, Saber said through their telepathic link so others wouldn't hear, which was best with Graphia being there at the moment. But I didn't think the devils would actually have the same concept. From what I read, around 34 of the devil households from the 72 pillars still have pureblood clans and are still active within it. There might not be many options for a few families to choose from, Naruto replied before he noticed his grandmother had turned her head up to the ceiling. Shaking his head a bit, he looked at Rias, who was still holding onto his hand. Hey Saber, back then, were there times when an arranged marriage had been nulled? There were a few, some were because of adultery, where the woman was no longer pure, which I believe Rias was trying to do. A few ended because something had happened to one of the candidates engaged. There were even some marriages that weren't cancelled, more like they shifted to another due to greater perks, you could say. If devil traditions have similar rules, Naruto muttered to himself as he looked down, his voice catching Ria's attention, making her turn to him with confusion. But would Rias-chan actually agree to it? Kaguya looked down from the ceiling before speaking up. It seems that he's finally arrived. Everyone turned to look at her as she raised her hand before snapping her fingers, and not even a second later a magical circle appeared next to Graphia. This one was crimson red like Rias. A male figure appeared out of the circle. He was a handsome man with the same hair and eye color as Rias, and he looked like an older male version of her wearing an armored cape. His eyes scanned the room for a second with a serious look, before resting on Rias. It wasn't hard for Naruto to figure out who this guy was. His presence alone was enough to scream out that he was powerful. This was Surzich's Lucifer. Rayatan. Surzich's cried out as he snatched Rias off the couch and gave her a hug. Oni-sama, put me down. Why are you here? The girl cried out as her brother started rubbing his cheek against hers. I thought you just sent Graphia to stop me. Of course I did. I didn't want my cute baby sister to lose her innocence. I wouldn't let anyone defile my precious Ryutan. The older Redeet cried out, making a few others sweat drop at the man's words, while Graphia let out a sigh at her husband being a siskin. As Naruto watched the scene of Surzich's hugging Rias while she tried to escape his hug, he felt something pulling his sleeve, and turned to see Mito looking at him. I take back what I said, he's more embarrassing than you. Naruto couldn't help but nod his head as he turned back to the scene, and noticed Surzich's had released Rias, who quickly retreated behind Akeno, and was now looking at Kaguya. It's been a while, Lady Kaguya. Surzich's greeted in a laid-back manner as he greeted the woman. How have you been? Hello Surzich's, still as laid-back as ever I see. Sometimes I wonder how you got Fia-chan to fall in love with you. Kaguya said, making the man move into a thinking pose. Well, there's my deviously good looks, and there's this one thing I can do with my two. He was cut off when Graphia smacked him in the back of the head, making everyone look at the man in wonder. This was one of the four great Satan, and the one holding the title of Lucifer. Please refrain from speaking about that while we are working, Surzicha-sama. Graphia spoke in a monotone voice, making the man sigh before nodding his head. I thought you wanted me to handle the situation involving Rias and Drazer. Yes, that was the original plan, but I wanted to come myself after receiving a message. It was from one Kaguya Uzumaki Lucifer to tell me that the Lucifer clan was returning to the underworld with an heir, and that my Ryutan was involved with this. Surzich's turned to Kaguya, who stood up from her seat and walked up to him. The two super devils stared at each other for a few moments. There's no chance that I wouldn't get involved after hearing those two things at the same time. Well, I knew your sister would try to use my grandson to break off the engagement. Besides that, I felt that he would need to be exposed eventually. As the two continued to speak, Naruto quietly moved over to Rias. Ryuz-chan, I think I know of a way for you to break off the engagement with this Razor guy. Both she and Akeno perk up when they heard that. What did you have in mind? Before I try anything, I need to ask, would it have meant anything to you if we had gone through with it? Naruto asked, making the girl white in her eyes at the question. Or would it have been a way for you to break off the engagement and nothing more? She didn't even have to think about it. A few tears built up a little in her eyes. I wouldn't have even thought about to give you my virginity if I didn't have feelings for you. I didn't want you to feel like I was just using you either. The two of us could have tried to figure out everything together. That's all I needed to know, Naruto replied as he brought her into a quick hug before pulling back and staring at Akeno, who nodded her head with a smile. Now I'm about to do something that might cause a lot of trouble, so be ready. Don't worry about us, Naruto-kun. Akeno replied while bringing a hand up to her cheek as a very small blush formed, and I'll be sure to punish you later, fufufu. Only if I survive this first. Naruto said before turning around and walked towards Suzuki's and Kaguya. Behind him Akeno let out small giggles, while Ryuz was curious on what he was about to do. As Naruto got close, Suzuki turned his head to look at him. You must be Naruto, the new heir of the Lucifer clan. What's up? The man greeted with a smile. Naruto could really see the similarities between the siblings. Naruto shook his head a bit before looking at Suzuki. It's about the engagement between Ryuz and this Razor Phoenix guy. The engagement, Suzuki grew a small frown before speaking again. It was created from a pact made between our fathers before Ryuz was born, and ever since she heard about it, she had been objected to it at every turn. Since they are both of age and Ryuz still is against it, I am planning on having the two have a rating game to resolve this. A rating game, huh? Naruto repeated before a grin appeared on his face. I'm sorry, but I can't let that happen. Oh really? And why do you say that? Suzuki raised an eyebrow while everyone else seemed to hold their breaths, waiting for Naruto's response. Because I, Naruto Uzumaki Lucifer, challenge Razor Phoenix for Ryuz Gremory's hand in marriage. Everyone blinked at that a few times, before all saying the same thing, well besides Kaguya who was laughing to herself. Eh? Arcuid followed Naruto as he started walking up the steps to the clubroom. So let me get this right, you found out Ryuz was engaged to someone, then last night you almost have sex with her, but stopped when the strongest queen appeared in your room, and then you made a challenge against the House of Phoenix to marry her instead. Anything else I missed while I was gone? Naruto seemed to think about it for a second before speaking again. I have one of the 7 Excalibur swords, and was assigned by the Lady of the Lake to retrieve the others and remake Excalibur. Cool, wait, what? Arcuid exclaimed as she realized what he said. How could so much have happened in the few days she was gone? Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. Naruto replied as he opened the door to the room and saw that Ryuz, Akeno, Kaneko and Mito were already inside. The older two were next to Ryuz's desk, while the last two were sitting on the couch. So I'm guessing that we haven't gotten a reply yet. Not yet, but we should be getting a reply soon. Ryuz replied as Naruto walked closer to the desk while Arcuid sat on one of the couches. This is a big move so late in the game. Who knows what they will say to a challenge out of nowhere. Doesn't matter, if they have any pride as devils then they will accept the challenge. Naruto said as he stopped in front of Ryuz's desk. Akeno placed a hand on her cheek, but still, I never thought you would actually go up to Suzuki-sama and actually state you want to marry his sister. How bold of you, fufufu. Naruto averted his gaze as a small blush formed on his face. I was focused on helping Ryuz-chan, rather than thinking about being face to face with one of the 4 strongest devils in the world. This gives us a bigger advantage compared to there being a rating game between your peerage and his. No offense, but some of your piece aren't ready for something like that yet. I realize that, which is why I don't mind that you'll be fighting Razor instead. Thank you Naruto-kun, Ryuz said with a smile on her face. You're going to kick his butt on Ii-chan. Mito said from her spot on the couch. Naruto turned to his sister and saw Kaneko was looking at him with a smile, before nodding his head to them. It was a few minutes later that Issei, Ashia and Kiba entered the clubroom, and Issei immediately went up to Naruto. Naruto-senpai, is it true that you're going to fight someone in order to marry Bucho? Yeah it is, we're just waiting to hear their response. A magical circle appeared near them with a flash, and Grafia walked out of the circle. Ignoring the look on Issei's face, he gave the woman a questioned look. Perfect timing Grafia-san, what did they say? They have agreed to the challenge Naruto-sama. While Grafia no longer a part of the old Satan faction, and was happily married and extremely loyal to the House of Gremory and Suzuki, she would always be just as loyal towards Kaguya Uzumaki Lucifer, the woman who was like a mother to her, and any descendants that shared her blood. However, Razor would like to meet you to finalize the agreement. Okay, I figured as much. Naruto replied with a nod. Did he say when exactly he would be arriving? He should be arriving here soon, Grafia answered. Razor. Is it the person you and Ashi were talking about? Issei wondered out loud, but before anyone could answer an orange magic seal appeared on the ground at the entrance of the clubroom, and a second later fire burst from the seal. The group watched as the fire began to settle to reveal a figure standing in front of them with a cocky smirk on his face. He was a handsome young man in his early 20s with short yellow blonde hair and dark blue eyes. His was wearing a burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right with matching pants and black dress shoes. Underneath his open blazer was a white dress shirt that was not fully buttoned, giving a slight view to his chest. "It's been a while since I've been in the human realm," the young man commented as he rubbed the back of his neck and turned his attention towards Rias. "It's great to see you again, my beloved Rias." Rias said nothing in response as she stared at the man with a hard look, while Naruto studied the man's appearance. This guy was full of arrogance, like he was superior to everyone in the room. Never mind, he probably thought that about everyone. Rias, Peerage, Mito and Arcuit could only stare at the man as he looked around the room before landing on Naruto. "I take it you're the one who is challenging me for what's mine." "That's right, I take it you're Razor Phoenix," Naruto replied, making Grafia nod her head in agreement. "Allow me to introduce Razor Phoenix. He is a pure-blooded, high-class devil, and the third son of the House of Phoenix." Grafia introduced the man, who only smirked as he stared at Naruto. "What's so special about the House of Phoenix?" Mito whispered to Keno as the buxom ponytailed girl moved next to her. "The House of Phoenix is one of the remaining families of the 72 Pillars, just like Bucho and the House of Gremory. They have inherent powers that are equivalent to that of the legendary creature, the Firebird Phoenix." The Keno explained in a low whisper so Ashia and Issei could hear as well. As such, their abilities reflect that of the legendary bird, where they can regenerate from almost any injuries immediately, and are practically impossible to defeat. It is said that the Phoenix family's tears are also known as Phoenix Tears, and sell for a high price, because of its powerful healing abilities. That sounds similar to Naruto Naisen's healing power. Are the Phoenixes as strong as the Gremories? Ashi replied, staring at Razor as he started to walk closer to Naruto. "I'll admit I was surprised to hear that I was being challenged for Ria's hand, by a low commoner at that," Razor said as he stopped just in front of the other blonde. "Even if you are part of a devil clan and a high-class devil, you're a simple extra demon." "Extra demon? What's he talking about? Doesn't he know about Naruto-senpai being the descendant of Lu?" The brunette was cut off as Ashi covered his mouth, making him blink a few times before he turned to her in confusion. "Naruto Naisen wants to reveal our clan to the underworld during the match between him and Razor," Ashia whispered to the brunette, "so we can't say anything yet." Issei nodded his head before turning to look at Razor and Naruto, who were still standing face to face, the former with a cocky grin, while the latter showed no real reaction to what he said. "But even so, I am still a pureblood and a high class just as you are. And Surzucha-sama and the House of Gremory have agreed to my request, since they can see that I am just as much a match for Rias as you," Naruto said with a calm voice, making Razor frown a bit at the empty reaction he had gotten. "Now if I believe you wanted to discuss something, Akeno-chan, can you please make us some tea?" Akeno closed her eyes and nodded her head before making her way to the cabinets. A few minutes later. Rias queen prepares such delicious tea," Razor said from his seat on the couch across from Naruto and Rias with a teacup in his hand. Akeno bowed a little bit. "Thank you for the compliment." She turned and handed Naruto his tea, to which he accepted with a smile. "Thank you, Akeno-chan." The girl nodded her head before moving out of the three heirs, and joined the group standing behind Naruto and Rias. Grafia was standing off to the side, studying the scene in front of her to make sure no chaos would ensure. "Now then Razor, just how did you want to do this?" "There are two ways I can think of. The first is that we have a rating game between the two of us, or it can be a duel between just us." Razor moved his gaze up to the group behind Naruto and looked at them, though from what I see, most of the devils here are a part of Ria's peerage. "You're correct about that. That's because I haven't retrieved my evil pieces yet." Naruto crossed his arms as his expression remained unchanged. "Besides Ria's group, there's my younger sister Mito and the true ancestor Arcade, who will become one of my pieces as soon as I get them." Razor let out a laugh at Naruto's response. "That's so pathetic it's hilarious. An heir to a devil family and you haven't gotten any of your pieces yet. This guy's a real asshole, huh?" Arcuit commented as she watched the laughing man with a bored look. "A rating game wouldn't be a good choice for Naruto-kun, since he doesn't have a peerage to go against Razor's own," Akeno said before she started to explain what a rating game was to Issei, Ashia and Mito. "I can't believe someone like this was originally chosen to marry Rias-senpai." Mito gritted her teeth as she said that. Oni-chan has gone through a lot of stuff since he was turned into a devil. Razor's laughter soon came to an end as he stood up from his seat and stared down at Naruto. "How about I show you a peerage belonging to a real devil?" With a snap of his fingers another orange magical circle appeared on the ground, this one larger than the previous one, and even more flames erupted from it. The fire soon died down to reveal 15 girls all dressed differently and varying in age, and all wore smirks and grins on their faces. Naruto couldn't help but notice the one at the front had similar features to Razor, and figured that the two must have been related. "As you can see I have 15 pieces, a complete set." Naruto and Rias said nothing in response as they stared at all the girls before turning back to Razor. The others were silent as well as they too studied the large group of girls. Well, all except one of them. Issei began crying manly tears as he got to them. 15 beauties, he has 15 beautiful girls. Now he is a real man. Naruto's eyebrow twitched after he heard that. Issei, please refrain from talking, you're only embarrassing yourself. It's to be expected, his dream is to create a harem after all. Ryu spoke up as she shook her head a few times. Razor had picked up on what she had said and moved over to his peerage, stopping in front of a woman with wavy purple hair, and started making out with her in front of everyone, much to the disgust of a few. He started fondling the woman's large breasts as he stopped kissing her to give Issei an arrogant look. You'll never be able to do things like this, you lowly imp. That pissed Issei off as he stared to glare at the older man. Shut up, you bastard. I can tell you'll flirt with other girls, even you marrying someone, which is why I can't wait to see Naruto-senpai kick your ass. He's 100, no, 1,000 times better than a pompous chicken shit like you. Issei. Don't you know your place? A lowly devil daring to talk down to me. Razor went from arrogant to annoyed before halting his fondling of the woman's breast. He raised his hand again and snapped his fingers. Needs to be punished. One of the girls in Razor's peerage leaped out of the group and ran towards Issei with a bow staff in her hands. The brunette didn't have time to react, as she made it a foot away from him with her weapon aiming for his stomach. But she didn't make contact as several spears of darkness surrounded and pinned her in her spot, not allowing her to move a muscle. Razor and his peerage were surprised by that and turned to Naruto, who had a hard look on his face, as he finally stood up from his seat and began to walk around the couch until he was standing in front of the staff-wielding girl, staring directly into her eyes. I don't care if you try to insult me, Razor, because I can give a shit what you think of me. Naruto said as he reached out and grabbed the girl by the collar of her haori, dismissing the spears as he roughly lifted her into the air and making her drop her bow staff. Naruto tossed her back towards Razor's peerage, causing her to collide with a few of the girls and knocking them down. But when you threaten my friends and try to hurt the people I care about, then I get angry. Are you alright, Issei? Ryuz asked as she walked up to her pawn, who nodded his head slowly before looking at Naruto's back. Ryuz followed his stare towards Naruto, giving the Lucifer heir a grateful look before turning to Razor with a cold glare. Razor snorted at Naruto's words, though he did take into account that the blonde was able to use darkness magic, a very powerful and difficult magic for devils to use. And why should I care about what you think? You're nothing more than a stepping stone to obtaining what belongs to me, trash. An orange aura started to build up around him, increasing the pressure within the room. That arrogance of yours is annoying. I think someone should put you in your place. Naruto released his own magical aura, making sure to conceal his light magic. That power would be revealed later on. The two devils' energies continued to grow as they glared at each other. Please calm down, Naruto-sama, Razor-sama. Grafia interrupted the two with a firm voice, making them halt their magic to look at her. This is supposed to be a peaceful meeting to decide how the duel should commence. I am under orders from Surzucha-sama to make sure that happens, so I won't stand idly by if such things continue. When it's you, the strongest queen, saying that, even I am scared, Razor answered with a weak surrender pose before turning to Naruto. So then Naruto Uzumaki, since I'm feeling generous, I'll leave the decision to you. Naruto stared at Razor in silence for a few seconds before responding. It will be a one-on-one duel, just you and me, Razor. The place and time can be left up to Grafia-san and Surzucha-san, but the duel will happen in 3 days from now. 3 days, are you sure that will be enough time for you? Razor questioned with a raised eyebrow as he stared at Naruto in amusement. Naruto smirked back at the man. That will be plenty of time for the two of us to be ready. Just be sure to bring your best, or else I'll crush you and finish the match quickly. His comment made Razor and his female peerage frown and shoot the Lucifer heated glares. I'll enjoy turning you to ash. Razor said before putting his hands into his pockets and walking up to the rest of his peerage, turning back to face Ryuz with his usual smirk. I look forward to seeing you again after I win, my love. You look great in your wedding dress, especially when I remove it for our wedding night. Not going to happen, Razor. Naruto spoke up as he moved next to Ryuz and wrapped an arm around her, surprising the girl at his sudden action. The only one allowed to see Ryuz-chan like that is me. Ryuz couldn't help but blush at how Naruto had said that. Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko smiled and nodded, though Akeno had a small blush on her cheeks, while Issei let out a little perverted chuckle, as the thoughts of a naked Ryuz flashed in his mind, before it was put to a halt with Kaneko smacking him. Ashi and Mito stared at their brother with awe-filled smiles at how cool their brother was, until a familiar aura surrounded Naruto, and a giant white Hanyu mask with long silver blue hair appeared behind him, its red eyes bleeding out, and a purple mist escaping its open mouth. So how about you leave before I sick Bester and Kichi on you? Razor said nothing as he couldn't help but take a step back from the ominous head. Some of his peerage started shaking at the sight. A magical circle appeared under Razor's group and teleported away as the flames erupted from the seal and covering their forms. As soon as Razor had officially left, the mask vanished, and Naruto turned to see his friend Sans Arcade, though a small trickle of sweat fell down the side of her face, staring at him with freaked out looks. Even Ryuz, who was in his arms, shook a little in fear. Naruto-kun, just what sadist taught you that? Ryuz asked as she looked up at Naruto. Ha. Taught me what? Naruto innocently replied with his own question, making a few sweat drop at how he once again denied what he did. Issei felt the strength in his legs disappear as he fell back on his ass. His whole body was shaking as he muttered to himself, bleeding eyes. It had fucking bleeding eyes. What's wrong with Issei? Naruto wondered before shrugging and turning to Graphia, who seemed to have no physical reaction to the mask. Did you get everything, Graphia-san? The woman nodded her head. Yes, I did, Naruto-sama. I will go inform Suzuki-sama about the day, and I will return to inform you of the other details. With a bow, Graphia summoned a magical circle before teleporting away. So that was the person Bucho was supposed to marry before Naruto Naisen got involved. Ashiya spoke up as she brought her hands up to her chest. I'm glad things are going like this, rather than Bucho being forced to marry him. My family had made the decision before I was born, trying to rush everything. Ryuz replied while crossing her arms. I refused to marry Razor with every time the topic would come up and think of ways for me to break it off. But thanks to Naruto-senpai, you were able to find a way. Kiba smiled as he spoke. It was bound to happen, especially after last night when Ani-chan asked to stay with Ryuz-senpai forever. She even asked him to do the same. Mito spoke up before covering her mouth when she realized what she had said. Naruto and Ryuz snapped their head in Mito's direction to look at her, their faces a little red as they remembered last night. Mito-chan, how exactly do you know that? Grandma told me about it earlier when I asked what was going on between you two, though I think she was keeping a few things from me, because there were a lot of gaps in between the moments. One moment the two of you are kissing and the next you're just talking. She was spying on us, Naruto and Ryuz exclaimed at the same time. Just went on in that room last night, Bucho. Akeno asked while placing a hand on her cheek. Ashiya was smiling brightly as she went past Akeno and brought Naruto into a hug. I'm happy for you, Naruto Naisen. And I was right about you and Bucho too. Yeah, I guess so. Ashiya, do you have issues against arranged marriages? Naruto had noticed that Ashiya had reacted a little strangely when people had started talking about how the engagement was set up by the two families. The blonde girl took a step away from her brother with a thoughtful look on her face. It's not arranged marriages in general that I don't like, it's when two people that don't even like each other are being forced into it. Ashiya explained as she looked away for a second before turning back to Naruto. I've always thought that marriage should be between two people that truly love and care each other, and I still believe that too. Sounds like you put some real thought into that, Ashiya. Akeno had a knowing look as she leaned closer to Ashiya. So does that mean you had someone like that as well? That got everyone's attention as they turned to look at the now blushing former nun. Well, there was someone, but it's been years since I saw him. Ashiya grew a small smile on her face. As you know, I was raised in the church orphanage, and while I didn't have a lot of friends, there was a boy there. He was very kind, and we would play together a lot. He was my very first friend. However, my powers had awakened when I was 8, and would have to leave the orphanage, and we couldn't take him with us. But before I left, he gave me a special cross he had with him since he was born. It was a precious gift that I still hold on to today, though I mostly keep it in a box now since I'm a devil. There are still a few times when I think of him. The others looked at the girl as a melancholy look appeared on her face, before Naruto patted her on the shoulder, and she looked up to see him smiling at her. It's okay, Ashiya-chan, everything will work out fine. And who knows, maybe you'll see him again. We devils live long lives after all. Yes, you're right. Ashiya smiled back at her brother before looking out the window. I wonder how he's doing now. Meanwhile, a male teenager lying back against a tree, taking in the peace and quiet as he stared up at the clear blue sky. Closing his eyes a bit, the teenager started to think to himself, I wonder how you're doing, Ashiya. Gawain-senpai. The newly named Gawain opened his eyes and turned his head to see a blue-haired girl with a green fringe, making her way towards him. A distance behind her was a light brown-haired girl with twin ponytails. It's time for training. Alright then, Gawain responded as he rose to his feet as the girls reached him, patting his pants a few times before turning to the girls. Shall we get going, you two? The girls nodded their heads and followed Gawain as he started walking away. They didn't want to be late for their daily regiments after all. So for the next 3 days you're going to be training with Kaguya-san? Ryuz questioned as she crossed her arms. Naruto nodded his head as he and Kaguya stood next to several glass spheres, each containing what appeared to be miniature models of different areas, such as a desert and in snowy terrain. As much as I am sure that I can beat Razor, it is better to keep myself in top shape until then. I doubt he'll be thinking the same thing, and that will be his downfall. But can you really do that much training in 3 days? Kiba asked as Kaneko leaned in close and studied the spheres with a curious expression. You can do loads of stuff in 3 days, but that's not the beauty of these things. Each one of them contains a separate world, different environments for the type of training you want. Kaguya explained as she had a smirk on her face, and each of them has a powerful spell that changes the flow of time while a person is in there. 1 day in one of these is equal to 1 hour out here. I've been training Naruto in these things ever since his training began. Anywhere else would be too dangerous. Mito-chan and I have been in them as well. It's really amazing inside. Ashiya added with a smile. Incredible, Issei commented as he tried to touch one of the glass spheres, but Naruto grabbed his hand before it touched. I wouldn't do that, touching them automatically teleports you there, and no one is allowed to leave until they've stayed inside for a day. Naruto explained, which perked Ria's interest as she and Akeno studied the spheres. Would it be alright if we use these spheres as well for training? These could really come in handy for us. Rias asked Kaguya, who nodded her head with a smile. Of course you can, I was going to offer you guys a bit of training here when this was all over. Kaguya said before turning to Naruto, now let's get going Naruto-kun, we've got a lot of work to do. Naruto nodded his head before turning to Rias, I'll see you guys in 3 days, though to me it'll definitely be longer, on that though. He was cut off by Rias giving him a kiss on the lips. She pulled away after a few seconds. Good luck and see you when you get back. Awesome, let's get going now. Naruto said to his grandmother, ignoring the snickering his youngest sister was letting out. The two Lucifers placed their hands on the glass sphere in the center, and were instantly teleported inside, leaving the others in the room before they started leaving one by one, until Akeno and Rias were left. You certainly have a lot of faith in him, Rias. Akeno commented as she turned to look at her king. Is there any reason not to? Rias replied with a smile, Naruto-kun has that kind of power, it's strange. The devil being able to use light magic is a strange thing indeed. Akeno said in agreement, but was surprised when Rias shook her head. I'm not talking about that, without using any real magic, he has this ability to make people believe in him. Rias explained before she turned and started walking out of the room. I suppose that's one of the reasons I fell for him, and why I don't mind him fighting Razor to marry me. Akeno watched as Rias walked out of the room with a quiet stare, making sure the red deed was gone before turning back to the glass spheres. She stared at them for a while and began to smile. I suppose that's something that attracted me to him as well. Akeno continued smiling as she shook her head and started making her way out of the room, leaving the spheres alone in the empty room. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.